Welcome to The Debate. Imagine you are building a house. You need real, tangible things, right? You need bricks, you need wood, you need a solid roof over your head.
Right, stuff you can actually put your hands on.
Exactly. Now imagine if the people building that house suddenly, stopped caring about the wood or the bricks, and instead they started making these really complex bets on the future price of the hammers.
Sounds like a terrible way to build a house.
It is. Because soon there are more people trading pieces of paper about hammers than there are people actually building the house. And, today we are debating whether this exact phenomenon in our capitalist system, the creation of financial tools like futures and options, inevitably destroys the real economy. Like, does it turn safety nets into endless gambling loops?
Boris, and this is where I come in. Are these tools a vital necessity for real-world producers? Because I argue they only become dangerous when they're misused by reckless speculation.
Right. Well, I argue that the evolution of finance inherently disconnects prices from reality. It diminishes the real economy, pulling us into an unavoidable, self-feeding loop of risk.
And I argue that these financial contracts are an absolute necessity. They're a perfectly rational safety net for farmers and workers. It just simply gets hijacked by greedy, uncovered bets in its final stages.
Hijacked? I think it's baked into the design.
I disagree. The tool itself is a brilliant shield. The failure is entirely behavioral.
Well, let's get into it then. When we trace the shift from tangible production making real things to abstract financial promises, we are looking at an inevitable, destructive cycle.
Inevitable is a strong word.
But it is. Look, it starts innocently enough. It's a way to give producers upfront cash to cover their costs. But it quickly creates a self-feeding loop. Hedging is supposed to provide safety, right?
Yes, that is the literal definition of a hedge.
Sure, but because of how the market actually functions, the act of hedging promotes massive speculation. When everyone is suddenly trading paper contracts rather than real wheat or iron, the slightest rumor of a drought sparks a complete trading frenzy.
Because the risk of that drought is real.
But people aren't just buying wheat to eat anymore. They are buying and selling to cover their financial bets. And this tidal wave of panicked trading is what whipsaws the price up and down so wildly.
Wait, you're ignoring the entire reason the market exists in the first place.
Which is what? To make Wall Street rich.
Oh, come on, no. The original intent of these financial tools is absolutely essential. More importantly, it solves a literal life or death problem for society.
A life or death problem? Really?
Yes. We have to look at the producers first. The farmers, the miners, the manufacturers. Their absolute biggest fear is falling prices. Think about a farmer. They spend months growing a crop. They buy seeds, maintain tractors, pay workers.
Sure, farming is expensive.
Right. So if the price of wheat drops below what it costs to grow it by the time harvest rolls around, producing becomes entirely irrational. If they are terrified of that price crash, they might just decide not to plant at all.
Which causes real-world shortages.
Exactly. Which means society doesn't eat. So a mechanism allows the farmer to lock in a price today for a crop they will harvest tomorrow. It secures their income.
I get the theory.
It's not just theory. It's survival. The system only fails in the very final stage when financial actors get greedy and chase immediate cash by selling promises they simply cannot keep. It is a behavioral failure, not some structural inevitability.
But that safety net you just described, it creates a massive new vulnerability the exact second it's implemented. Let's look at how that actually plays out in the real world.
Okay, let's look at it.
A farmer wanting to lock in a price seems harmless, but historically, that started as a private deal, right? A forward contract.
Exactly. A buyer promises the farmer, I will buy your crop in 6 months for a set price. The farmer gets confidence.
But forward contracts are private, clunky, and honestly inherently fragile.
Well, yeah. What happens if the buyer goes bankrupt before the harvest?
The farmer might be tempted to just break the contract and sell to someone else.
Right. It is a system built on personal trust, which, does not scale for a global economy.
Which is why the system standardizes them. We get organized exchanges with fixed sizes, fixed expiration dates, and clear rules. The private forward contract becomes the standardized futures contract.
Which is a brilliant innovation. It really is. It allows the producer to hedge against disaster. They agree to sell their future crop at a locked-in price today.
Selling something they haven't even harvested yet.
Yes, to secure their survival against price drops. They can stop worrying about the market and actually focus on the farm.
You call it a brilliant innovation, but let's look at what actually happens the moment those organized exchanges appear. Capital intervenes.
Capital provides the liquidity.
No, capitalists enter the picture to buy these futures, and they are not buying them because they own a bakery and want to bake 1 million loaves of bread.
Well, some do, but yes, many are investors.
They are buying them to speculate the prices will rise by delivery. The exact moment capital intervenes, it creates an incredibly fragile system. It is like paying for a house before it is built, but then letting complete strangers place bets on whether the house will burn down.
That is a fun analogy, but it's flawed.
How is it flawed? The tool was created to remove risk for the farmer, but it simply transferred that massive financial risk onto speculators. The risk didn't disappear, it just moved and mutated.
But moving the risk to someone who can actually afford to take it is the entire purpose of a functional financial market. The farmer cannot afford the risk of a price collapse.
And the capitalist can?
Yes, the capitalist can. The capitalist steps in, provides the cash the farmer needs to survive today, and takes the risk of the price dropping tomorrow. That is a voluntary, informed trade-off.
A trade-off that changes the whole nature of the market.
But without those capitalists stepping in to take the other side of the trade, the farmer has no one to sell their futures to. The system provides liquidity. It means there is always cash available to keep the real economy moving.
But hold on. The capitalist who took on all that risk from the farmer isn't just going to sit on it. They have to protect themselves. And that leads directly to the hedging trap.
Hedging isn't a trap. It's risk management.
It becomes a trap because the capitalist who bought those futures wants to protect their own profits. When the market starts to shift, the capitalist who already agreed to buy the wheat, what we call a long position, suddenly feels exposed.
Right. Capital seeks to protect profits. That is a completely rational response to risk.
Rational for the individual, maybe. But to mitigate this huge risk they just took on, the capitalists start hedging their own bets. They start selling their own futures, or they sell call options.
To balance their portfolio.
And this is exactly where the volume of trading explodes. You have the farmer selling futures, the capitalist buying futures, and then the capitalist selling more futures and options just to cover their original bet.
That's how markets work.
But for every 1 real bushel of wheat, there might be 20 paper contracts trading hands. Does that sound healthy to you?
You are blurring the tool with the behavior here. Let's separate them. When the market rises, capital wants to protect its future profits, so they sell futures equal to the amount they already agreed to buy.
Adding more paper to the pile?
Their goal is simply to aim for neutrality. They want to balance the scales so they don't lose everything if the market suddenly turns. Aiming for neutrality is a defensive, protective maneuver.
But the intent of the individual doesn't matter when the aggregate result is a self-feeding loop of volatility. Look at the mechanics.
I am looking at the mechanics.
Because there are now 20 paper contracts for every real bushel of wheat, any tiny change in the weather report causes massive panic. Speculators rush to buy or sell thousands of contracts in seconds just to protect their abstract bets.
Which provides accurate price discovery.
No, it creates wild, violent price swings. What does high volatility do? It terrifies people, which encourages even more hedging, which attracts even more speculators trying to profit off the swings.
You're assuming all speculation is purely destructive.
I'm saying the system is no longer about the farmer's wheat. The real economy is entirely subordinated to the financial game. The progression naturally disconnects prices from actual supply and demand.
The problem isn't the structure of aiming for neutrality. The problem arises when they discover the premium.
Ah, the premium. Finally, we get to the greed.
Well, yes. When investors sell call options, they get an immediate cash income. It offers protection, but it also offers instant profit. That instant profit is where human greed overtakes the original purpose of the tool.
Let's explain that simply for a second. Think about it logically. If I sell you the right to buy an apple from me next month for $1 and you pay me a 10-cent fee today for that privilege, I get 10 cents of instant cash.
Right. That 10 cents is the premium.
Exactly. Now, if I actually own the apple in my orchard, fine, that is covered. But the historical record shows us that investors do not stop at protection. The moment they realize they can pocket that instant cash, they start selling far more options than they can ever cover.
True. They begin selling far more call options than they should. Some even go fully naked.
Fully naked? Explain what that means in the Apple scenario.
It means they are selling you the right to buy the apple, but they don't actually own any apples, and they haven't grown any apples. They are just collecting your 10-cent premiums and gambling that the price of apples won't go up.
And if the price of apples jumps to $5 next month, what happens?
Well, they are forced to go out into the real market, buy incredibly expensive apples for $5 and sell them to you for $1 just to fulfill the contract. It is a massive, ruinous risk.
It is financial suicide.
But again, finding a mechanism that offers instant profit isn't inherently evil. The tool is just a contract. The actors in the market could choose to stop at neutrality. They could choose to use the tool as a pure safety net. The fact that they don't is an issue of human behavior.
You cannot separate the human behavior from the market structure when the structure relies entirely on human incentives.
Of course you can. A hammer can build a house or break a window.
Okay, let's use another analogy to explain how ruinous a naked call option is. Think of an airline. It is like an airline deliberately overbooking a flight by 500%. They collect all the ticket money up front and just assume most people will cancel.
Right, which is incredibly risky.
Yes, because if everyone actually shows up to the airport, meaning the market price goes up, the airline doesn't have enough seats. They have to start buying people off the plane at astronomical, ruinous prices just to fulfill their legal obligations.
Which is exactly why selling naked call options is a terrible, reckless maneuver. It is like driving a car with your eyes closed.
Exactly.
But wait. If a driver decides to ignore the speed limit, close their eyes, and drive at 100 miles an hour, the resulting crash does not mean the invention of the automobile was a mistake. Transportation is still necessary.
The airline overbooking analogy cuts deeper than just bad behavior, though. It is about structural market forces.
How so?
Because if one airline discovers they can make massive instant cash by overbooking flights, they can suddenly outcompete the conservative airlines. They simply have more cash on hand.
Okay, but they carry more risk.
But the market forces everyone into riskier bets just to survive the competition. If one capitalist is making millions selling naked calls, the conservative capitalists who only use the tools for safety will be driven out of business.
That assumes the reckless capitalist never gets caught in a crash.
But until they do, the system forces participants to chase the premium. This isn't just a few bad actors making reckless choices. The logic of capital demands maximum profit. If selling naked options provides massive instant cash, capital will inevitably chase it until the system breaks.
The system forces them to compete, yes, but it does not force them to write uncovered contracts that guarantee their own destruction if the market turns.
It strongly incentivizes it.
We are dealing with a market of actors making a conscious deviation from the purpose of the tool. A safety net only becomes a gamble when you stop using it to catch falling producers and start using it as a trampoline to bounce higher into the air.
A trampoline that eventually snaps.
Yes. When the financial system crashes because of these naked calls, yes, it causes immense pain. But without the initial forward and futures contracts, the farmer faces the terror of falling prices completely alone.
But at least the price is real.
We cannot throw out the essential shield of modern agriculture and industry just because investors turn it into a casino.
But the shield itself is what built the casino. The progression from tangible production to abstract speculation is an unbroken chain.
It is not unbroken. There are clear behavioral jumps.
Look at the steps. It starts with farmers needing stability. Then it moves to capitalists providing cash. Then it shifts into capitalists hedging for neutrality. And finally, it explodes into a competitive frenzy of chasing premiums through naked call options.
Again, you're blaming the evolution of a tool on the people misusing it.
Every step is a logical, necessary reaction to the problem created by the previous step. It is a connected chain of events where the solution to one problem creates a much larger, more dangerous problem.
I fundamentally disagree that fraud and greed are necessary reactions.
When the trading volume of abstract bets completely dwarfs the actual goods being produced, the tail is wagging the dog. The abstract speculation actually begins to dictate the prices of the real-world goods. The farmer isn't protected by the market anymore. The farmer is at the mercy of a casino's mood swings.
The foundation, the need for a producer to secure a price for their labor before the harvest,
remains a totally rational and necessary economic reality.
I don't disagree that farmers need stability.
Good. Because the agricultural system of the modern world could not feed billions of people without the ability to manage risk across time. Yes, the market today is heavily focused on chasing that premium, and the disconnect from real supply and demand is a reality we all have to navigate.
A very dangerous reality.
But the alternative is a world where every single producer carries the entire burden of global volatility on their own shoulders. And that world leads to empty grocery store shelves.
Well, we have covered a lot of complex ground today, tracing the mechanics of how a simple agreement to buy wheat transforms into a global web of speculative risk.
A very tangled web.
Exactly. I want to make sure we summarize our positions clearly, as this evolution is really key to understanding the economic forces shaping our world right now.
Sounds good.
From my perspective, the evolution of these financial tools is a self-feeding loop. What begins as a helpful idea to protect farmers quickly and inevitably abandons the real producers. Because capital must constantly protect its own profits and outcompete rivals, the system creates more and more abstract risk.
Right.
It heightens volatility until it completely prioritizes dangerous financial games over the real physical economy.
And to summarize my position, I view these tools, the futures and the options, as a vital shield for farmers, miners, and workers. They are a necessary invention that allows real-world producers to survive the absolute terror of price crashes.
Which is a valid concern.
Right. The system only breaks down when financial actors abandon the simple logic of protection and instead recklessly chase immediate cash by making uncovered, naked bets. The tool is essential. The greed is the flaw.
Despite our disagreement on whether this structural takeover by finance was an inevitable flaw or a behavioral hijacking, we share a clear point of convergence today.
We do. We both agree on the historical reality of where we are now. What began as a safety net has escalated into a massive speculative gamble in today's financial landscape.
Yeah, the trading of paper far outpaces the trading of physical goods.
We absolutely agree on that. Understanding how a simple futures contract morphs into a naked call option helps us see the invisible forces acting on the prices of everything around us.
From the bread on our tables to the materials building our homes.
Exactly. It is critical to stay informed and actually understand the mechanics behind the numbers.
We will leave it to you, the listener, to decide, are the financial tools that run our modern world fundamentally flawed by design, inevitably dragging us into a self-feeding loop of risk?
Or are they brilliant, necessary inventions being misused by human greed?
Think back to our house. Are we still trying to build a shelter for society, or are we just standing in the dirt, rolling dice over the price of a hammer? Thank you for listening.